Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my creative space. In today's video, I wanted to do a cumulative book haul because last month was my birthday and I was gifted a few reads, and also I've just accumulated some books over the summer that I wanted to share, and I also have a really exciting piece of bookish merch that I thought you all would be interested in seeing. And with that, we are going to start with the first book that I hauled, which is an audiobook and an Audible exclusive, Morbidly Yours. This one is a romance between our Southern Belle, who moves over to Ireland to start afresh after tragedy kind of hits her life, and she wants to kind of restart, find herself in a new place where she meets our grumpy hero, who is her neighbor that works at a mortuary. And they have this very silly meet cute where she gets his mortuary's package, which are body bags. And so she goes over there and she's like, I think the delivery person gave me the wrong package. And one of the things that I really liked about this book and put it on my radar to begin with was that there is demisexual representation. And I think that representation was done really well. And yeah, it was a fun time. I definitely would 100% tell you to go ahead and pick up the book. The next book that I have is an ebook, and this one is Middle Singer, which is a romantasy that I have seen, I believe, Rachel from Raven Hair Reader and Emmy from Emmy Rosman talking about. And I know that this one is a more like enemies to lovers leaning story. From their reading vlogs, they just rave about the way the plot twists and turns in this, and I'm really excited to see how this goes. I hope there's a lot of banter, a lot of angst, and some real enemies to lovers going on here. And I also am just so interested to know what the plot twist in this is, because like the reactions that I've seen and like all the reviews on Goodreads that I've seen, everybody talks about this plot twist, and I'm like, I think I've read 2 plot twists in this past year that have really shocked me, and I hope this one definitely gets creative with the plot twisting and turning. The next book that I have is a horror read, and one that I actually was very intimidated about starting, but because I had finished reading We Used to Live Here and a few of my friends were interested in picking up this book, I decided that I would get myself a copy and just do a slow read, and that is House of Leaves. In this one, we are reading the Navidson Records, which is the sort of documentation this very famous photographer made of the house that he's moving into with his partner and children. And at first, the kind of documentary he is planning to do is this very like homely, look at me living day-to-day life and just reconnecting with the people in my family. And I believe it slowly becomes more sinister and scary as he starts to find out very strange happenings in the house that he lives in. And the house seems to be much bigger than what is really physically shown. And also within this book, we are reading the story of Johnny, who like inherits these records. And as he's reading, he is writing and jotting down notes in the footnote area. So like, for example, right here is like the Navidson Records. And then within the footnotes, there's a different font that is chosen. And this is like Johnny talking about his current day life and how like his reflection on the records that are being read here. But it definitely is something that I'm reading very slowly because one, I am interested in the Navidson Records, but the font choice for Johnny's footnotes, unfortunately, is a little hard for me to read. So like my eyes are having a hard time focusing on the text in the book. Like the normal record font right here is fine for me, but then when we get to the specific footnotes from Johnny, for some reason this text is just so hard on my eyes, and it might be because there's no like spacing between the lines as well. I think traditional stories usually have a sort of font spacing, but for this one, it's like so close together. So a slow read is definitely how I'm reading this. And will it take me 3 months? Will it take me a year? Who knows? Hopefully I get through this, because this is a mission I would like to accomplish. The next book that I have is Air by Saba Tahir. This one follows 3 perspectives. One I think is like a orphan, another one is like a kind of assassin killer, and then the other one is a prince. Mostly I just know that the prince is related to a character that was in the Ember and the Ashes quartet, and in his perspective, he is supposed to be heir to this kingdom, but he's struggling a lot because he's found out that his family heritage is a little sketchy. Not the best people to figure out that you have shared DNA with, and so he's kind of struggling with that, but also the idea that he is supposed to lead his nation while this big bad is looming and threatening his kingdom. And then the other 2 perspectives, I'm not entirely sure how exactly they will tie in, but I know that with the Ember and the Ashes quartet, I really liked the dynamic of her characters and the character growth that she shows throughout the quartet. So I'm so excited to see how her characters grow in this world. This one is a duology, so I wonder how deeply we are going to get to know the characters, and if she will hurt me just as much as she did with the quartet. This next one is quite the stack, and I will preface this with saying that I had accumulated points from my work, and then you get to like cash out the points for anything. And so I decided to cash it out for a gift card. And you know, it was my birthday last month, and I decided, you know, with the gift card, I would purchase the series that I've become very enthralled with, and it's the Magnolia Park series. This one, okay, I've been very scared to read this one because I've just heard all sorts of things. But then my friend really loves the Magnolia Park books, and I was like, okay, I'll put it on my TBR, right? And then I saw Kayla from Books and Lala read this book, and she had a silly, goofy time, and I was like, I'd like to have a silly, goofy time. And, you know, it was very unexpected to me that Kayla would like this book. I put a hold on my Libby, and then halfway through the book, I was like, yeah, I would like to gift myself Magnolia Parks. And then after I finished Magnolia Parks, I used that gift card to buy the other 4 books. But in Magnolia Parks, we are following Magnolia Parks, our main character, and we are following her as she kind of dishes out the drama between her and her friend group and all these other very rich London socialites. And she's kind of telling us this very complicated dynamic between her and her best friend BJ, who also happens to be her ex-boyfriend, and how messy their dynamic is like they're not together anymore because he cheated on her, but they're still sleeping with each other, not like in a sexual sense, but like they're sharing the same bed every single night, and they can't detach each other from themselves. And it's just very messy and vapid, and you just sit there and you think, why in the world are we doing all of this? It's just very fun, very addictive. I just like this cover so much more than the atrocious Feet cover. I think I've talked about this before, but Feet, I'm very anti-Feet on this channel. Like, also, I don't even understand why they chose Feet. I mean, like, I know they feature like Vans on there, and our main character BJ likes to wear Vans, but like Feet, I don't know. I don't know who made that choice. I do like how floppy the US covers are, but the design with the feet, I couldn't have that. But I totally understand why, because there's like certain, like, this is obviously that like luxury fashion designer bags here, and they probably had like some sort of copyright thing, but you could have done something fun like this and not have done the feet. The second book in the series follows Daisy Hates. This one, she is the younger sister of one of Magnolia's friends, Julian, and he's like this mob boss. Like, he basically runs London's biggest mob, and there's the cover for that. Very fun. I don't know how Jesus is involved in this one, but I'll probably find out. I did start this one. I'm like 11 chapters in. But you know what? I love the symmetry. Daisy Hates follows, of course, Daisy Hates, who is the younger sister of Julian, who is like this notorious mob crime boss in London. And we just follow her romance between this guy, Christian, who she's having like this friends of benefits moment with. And maybe it becomes more. The next one is Magnolia Park's Long Way Home. Daisy Hates The Great Undoing. And then the final one that I have is Magnolia Park's Into the Dark. I think this is so funny. This looks like something, like, you know those beauty pageants, like the Miss Universe or whatever? Like, this is giving like a Miss Universe outfit. And then there's a wolf. Again, I've not read this one yet, so I'm not sure how these elements get about to being understood, but yeah. Very fun. It is one of those series that has really like wormed its way into my brain, and I just am really here for the messy, privileged lifestyle. There's the spines. And it's just a fun time. Sometimes you just need to have a fun, silly time with reading. The next books that I have are definitely ones that I was very much influenced into getting because I started reading the Rebel Blue Ranch series by Lila Sage. Those are like kind of cowboy romances. My friends were telling me that I should try out the Chestnut Spring series. And so I also watched Tori from Tori Between Pages. She had read Heartless from this author, and she was giggling, kicking her feet, having a silly time. And I was like, I'd like to have a silly time just like Tori. So I got Flawless, which is the first book in the Chestnut Spring series, and Heartless. And for this one, Heartless, I know is a lot of my friends' faves. They say that this one's the best one out of all 5 books in the Chestnut Spring series. But I thought that I would just give the first book in the series a go just to see what the writing is like, because like, imagine this is my favorite of the whole thing. I wouldn't want to like set myself up. So I'm like, okay, let's go out with Flawless first, catch the vibes, and then read the fan fave. And I know this one, Erin from Book and Busy was really telling me to read Heartless because it's a single dad romance, and I really liked Caught Up by Liz Tomford, and she was like, if you like that one, Heartless could be your vibe. And I think this one is like a like bull rider and assistant type of romance. I think like he does something outlandish and then he needs to have like a PR babysitter, and then he falls in love with that PR babysitter that he has. I hope I have a fun, silly time. The next books that I have were gifted to me by my best friend for my birthday. And the first one is Yakuza Fiancé. I actually don't own any manga, which I don't know if that's surprising or not. I tend to read more on like the Shonen Jump app, or I'll borrow ebooks from my library. The reason why I don't own them is because a lot of the manga that I read is very long series, and I am a completionist at heart, so I didn't want to buy some of my favorite manga and then be like, well, I need to own all 38 volumes. Yeah, I didn't want to do that to myself, so I haven't gotten any, but if they're gifted to me, who am I to say no? This one is Yakuza Fiancé. We follow the heirs of the Yakuza families from Tokyo and Osaka, and they're in high school, but I think their grandparents kind of set them up to be betrothed together, and they have this very antagonistic kind of situationship going on at the beginning, and it is just a silly, goofy time. I really like how expressive the art style in this one is. Look at how silly Yoshino looks in here. Yeah, it's such a fun one, and because my friend bought me this copy, I thought that maybe I could just do a whole reread of this series. The next one is also a manga. This is an omnibus of volume 1 through 3 of A Sign of Affection. This one is my favorite manga read that I read last year. In this one, we follow our main character, Yuki, who is deaf, and she is going to college and trying to navigate life on her own and kind of come into her young adulthood, where she meets our main character, Itsumi, who sees her kind of struggling to communicate with somebody on the subway line. And so he kind of swoops in and like helps her out in this moment, kind of explains to her like, oh, that man was a foreigner and he was speaking to you in English, and maybe that was why you didn't fully understand him. She's like, oh no, like I communicate mostly through sign language. And he sees how she kind of communicates with other people through text and like writing on a whiteboard in order to make other people more comfortable. And Itsumi is like, I'm going to learn how to communicate in sign language so that you can be comfortable. And it's like this very cute, wholesome romance between the two. I really love the art style and the way that the mangaka draws hands. Obviously, like in a manga where sign language is a main form of communication for our main character, the hands are very much a feature in communication. And there are certain panels that like you are shown the hands and like obviously some translation of what is going on. And I think it is so beautifully done, and it just feels like you're floating reading this book. It is just so wholesome. And this one is just definitely a favorite for me because I really enjoyed the representation of somebody with a hearing impairment. As someone who's also hearing impaired myself, this was just something that was so beautiful to see. If you want to pick up a manga, please pick up Yakuza Fiancé and A Sign of Affection. Definitely very different vibes, okay? This one, very unhinged. This one, very wholesome. So you pick what you're feeling that day. The next one that I have is Fear the Flames. I got the UK cover because I just think that the US cover, I'll put it over here for you to see, is lacking a little bit. Like it feels very empty, and I think the UK cover just kind of fits the vibe a little bit more, and it's more like full, if that makes sense. And in this one, we follow our main character who is imprisoned by her father after she kind of bonds with these 5 dragons that are gifted to her, and he kind of is afraid of the power that she wields because of this bond between these 5 dragons. And so he kind of banishes her into the basements of the castle, and he kind of tortures her and is doing all these very abusive things in order to break the bond between her and her dragons. And at the start of our story, we kind of see her form an alliance with a sort of enemy military man, and he promises her that he will help her get her dragons to freedom if she agrees to help them in aiding a war against her father. Obviously, she's not a big fan of her father, so she's kind of like, I will do anything and agree to anything as long as I can get my dragons back. And, you know, along the way, they start to flirt, and the enemies becomes to, you're my enemy, I don't really trust you, but I do think you're cute. They have very fun banter in this one. I have read this one. This one was also an anticipated read for me. I did have a good time with this. The next one that I have is Malice by John Gwynne. This one I got because Becca from Becca and the Books is doing a read-along for the Malice series. And this one, honestly, don't know too much about it besides there being this sort of classic good versus evil dynamic in this one. Most of what I've heard about this novel is that there are a lot of different characters, and that's why I ended up getting the physical read of this, because, you know, I would like to be able to keep track of who and what I'm reading, and the best way for me to keep track is to have a physical copy. Also, I can't remember who, but somebody told me that I would like this series because there is a character, if you like Night Eyes from Realm of the Elderlings, there's a sort of like animal companion that has the sort of sass and quippy characterization as Night Eyes. And that was what really put this on my radar, and Becca just doing a read-along for this definitely ended up pushing me in purchasing this read. And the final book that I have for my haul is a special edition that I got from the Broken Binding. I am subscribed to their fantasy book only option, and this one is The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams. This one is stunning. Like, love the cover, love the colors, great stenciled edge, back for you, the spine for you. Also, there's like pen paper art. Very beautiful, very stunning. And there's also foiling on the cover for you. Very nice. Do love a gold and purple moment. And with this one, I believe I'm going to be starting this next year, but this is a backlist fantasy that has been on my radar for a little while. And I know this one, the beginning of the story is mostly that the current king in the kingdom is dying, and this enemy king is looking and biding his time to go ahead and take over the kingdom once that king is dead. And the dying king's younger brother gets with a bunch of scholars in the kingdom, and they're trying to figure out how they can push back this kind of opposing force from taking over their kingdom. And so the young apprentice of one of those scholars is sent out on a quest to help their kingdom not be taken over. And so I think it's like a classic quest story, and I'm just really excited to see what the Dragonbone Chair has to offer. And if anything, I have this very beautiful, stunning edition from the Broken Binding. That is all of the books that I've purchased in the past few months. But the last thing I wanted to show you is probably one of my favorite things that I have purchased in a while. Again, it was my birthday last month, and I wanted to purchase something bookish but special for myself. And I have been watching Ellen Catherine a lot, and she's spoken about this company quite a bit because she does have a collaboration with this company, and it's from Literature Stitches. And on Literature Stitches website, they have this option of doing a custom sweater. And so I decided to order myself a custom book stack. And because one of my favorite series, Realm of the Elderlings, has a significant lack of merchandise, I decided to get myself a custom book stack of my favorite from each of the series in the Realm of the Elderlings. Look at that! I am speechless. I love it so much. So in the first trilogy, the Farseer trilogy, I picked Royal Assassin. In the Live Ship Trader trilogy, I chose Ship of Magic. In the Tawny Man trilogy, I picked Fool's Fate. In the Rainwell Chronicles, I picked Dragonhaven. And in the final Fits in the Full trilogy, I chose Assassin's Fate. And I love this like ombre effect she was able to achieve on this last book. When I got this in the mail, I just stared at the embroidery, because the bottom one, we were talking about just doing a block color because she wasn't sure if she could achieve that sort of dusting, gold dusting that is on Assassin's Fate. And so when I opened up my package and I saw that she was able to achieve that, it blew my mind. Honestly, favorite purchase of the year. And with that, that is all I have to haul for you today. I hope you enjoyed this haul with me and just having me chit chat about books that I've not really read the synopsis for. That's not new here. I've said before that I enjoy reading books without reading their synopsis and not being given the whole plot away on accident. But yeah, if you have purchased any books recently, I would love to know what those books are, and maybe I can put them on hold at my local library and get to reading more books that I have not heard about. If there are any books from this stack that you've already read and loved, I'd also love to hear that from you. If you don't have anything else to say, I would love for you to put a dragon emoji in the comments below for the dragon bone chair. I thank you so much for watching this video and sticking along till the end, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!